Welcome to Meet the Candidates 2023. As you see up here, we have 9 candidates running for 4 seats for Harrisburg Town Council. These are 4-year terms. I'd like to thank Gathering on the Main and Harrisburg Business Network for sponsoring this event this evening. Harrisburg Business Network is a local business group created by business owners to support one another and the Harrisburg community. My name is Leo Spardella. I'm a 21-year Harrisburg resident, husband, father of 4, and co-founding partner of Royal Financial Partners. This is the 6th biannual Meet the Candidates event sponsored by HBN, and I'm honored to be hosting the last 4 of these. This event, as you all know, is being live streamed on YouTube TV, or actually, I'm sorry, YouTube. Now let's get to the format. We're going to have approximately an hour 45 to get through this evening. This is going to be a Q&A session. There will be no debates, and there will be no live audience questions. The questions tonight are all from Harrisburg Business Network members and responses through Facebook. The HBN board has selected these questions from a pool. I am not a member of the board, so I have no idea what these questions are. I will hear of the questions the first time when you guys hear the questions. Before the Q&A session, though, we're going to have a 90-second kind of introduce yourself to the community type of session here. The goal on that is to allow the citizens of the Harrisburg community to get to know a little bit more about you, some of your stances and thoughts that may not come up within the questions that are asked. With regards to the order of the questions asked, there will be a different order for each question asked. For example, no one person will answer a question first. We will draw a name for each of the questions that are asked tonight, and we will go in order to one's left for the first question, and then one's right for the next question. I'll walk you through who's up next. The first person to introduce himself tonight for their 90 seconds is going to be Mr. Arlo. So Ron Smith. And the way we'll work is after Ron gives his 90 seconds, Mr. Torrance will go ahead and answer next, and then we'll go over to Ms. Crystal. So Ron, the forum's yours.
Use this, or is it test? Okay. Ron Smith. I originally was elected in 2015, seeking a 3rd term. I have a wife, 2 children. Everyone tends to know my kids. They don't know me, but they know my kids. I have 2 redheads. My daughter wrestles, or did wrestle in high school. She's off wrestling today at Mount Olive University. My son played baseball for Hickory Ridge High School and then went off to play in college, and now he's at UNCC studying business management. I initially ran in 2015 because of development was, in my opinion, out of control. There was a neighborhood at the time, Holcomb Woods, and many probably would be familiar with it. At the time, they were proposing something like 300 to 400 homes. There were a lot of promises made, and it just didn't feel comfortable, didn't feel right. And I started then asking for us to grow our lot sizes, move forward. And I'll tell you, from one who's been in, it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen with just one person. It happens with a group. If you could imagine, if I started that push in 2015, we didn't start seeing larger lots until 2021, 2 years ago. And I'm happy to say that we've had a crew in the last 2 years that gets along very well. There's no added extra drama. And at the end of it, we're making progress. We've worked together. We've done some amazing things, and I want to have an opportunity to do that again if you'll elect me back to town council. The last thing that I'll tell you tonight is pay attention to what you're going to hear. I have a feeling you're going to hear a lot of me's and I's in this role. I will tell you, it takes a lot of we. And you got to be that we to make all this to go move forward and have things go along, because from one who sat there, you see that it just doesn't happen with just your ideas. It takes a group to make it happen.
Thank you, Ron. Robin Torrance.
Good evening. My name is Robin Torrance. I grew up in Newell, which is just about 5-6 miles south of here, and have lived in Harrisburg since 1985. A lot of my life prior to moving into the town was spent in Harrisburg, so I have been around for a long time. I have served on the fire department board from May of 2001 until the volunteer fire department sunset in June of 2006, and then on the Fire Town Advisory Board from then until May of 2023 when the board was dissolved. Along the way, I also served on the Stormwater Advisory Committee, and I've tried my best to serve the town. I feel like there's a little bit more gas in the tank, and I'd like a little time to do it. So if you'll vote for me, I'll do the very best I can to build a consensus and see what we can make happen for Harrisburg.
Crystal Anderson.
Good evening, friends. I am Crystal Anderson. I am a wife. I am a mother of 3, and I am a small business owner here in Harrisburg. We relocated to Harrisburg in 2020 from southern Colorado on what we would consider to be a faith move. We helped develop a church in Kannapolis, North Carolina, just up the road here, and in that position, I helped as a national director for a local and national ministry, developing leaders across the United States. What this entails is helping develop biblical concepts for people in small communities and just helping make those things applicable to people who had spiritual-based questions. So from there, while a resident in Colorado, I was also a small business owner. I ran a salon of 10 stylists and helping develop leaders, helping develop business owners, helping empower people to do whatever it is that they feel like they have a heart and a desire to do is my heart. I would very much agree with Mr. Ron Smith when he says, this council cannot be about I, it needs to be about we and how we can collaborate to make our community better. And so as a potential council member, I look forward to being a voice and an ear to all residents for Harrisburg.
Rodney.
Welcome everyone online, and especially to you folks that came out in person tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you to the HBN for hosting the event. I'm a native of Charlotte, and I own a home in Harrisburg since 2002. I know what Harrisburg used to be as I passed through here 45 years on the way to NC State to get my degree. I am completing my first term in office, and I am seeking the second term and want to be your councilman again. I was involved the first time in getting elected. I was involved with a group of people that were dealing with high density and density in Harrisburg. We fought for 18 months prior to my election and a vote, and we had a council that would not listen. They deemed us nothing, in essence, as a resident. We had 300 to 400 residents that went to the high school, so they still neglected us. So on November the 7th, you're going to go to the polls and you're going to vote for 4 town council members to represent you. There are 3 incumbents for this re-election and 1 open position. As you make that important decision, I remind you about the politics of the county, the state, and the nation. Remember what brought you to Harrisburg to raise your family or to retire. Remember the place where you left and why you left. And is that what you want Harrisburg to be in the future? As an incumbent, I ask for your vote with Ian Patrick and with Ron Smith. What you need to remember as a resident, and this is very important, we are a council of 7 members. It takes 4 like-minded members to make a change. I made the decision to run. Now it is in your hands to decide whether you felt I have represented you well in the last 4 years and will represent you well. Thank you so much.
Wendell.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here. My name is Wendell Fant. I am married to an amazing woman, Jennifer. My high school sweetheart. We have a son who's a senior now at UNC Pembroke. I am running because I feel that everyone needs a voice. I remember early in my Marine Corps career, I attended Charleston Southern University. Early in my career, I joined the Marine Corps at the same time, and we had a mobilization readiness test, and it was the first time that my family was going to come and see me run at the collegiate level. Well, none of the senior enlisted or the officer could make a decision about, Fant, you're good to go ahead and take off. And I remember how frustrating that was, not to have a voice. So from that point on, early in my Marine Corps career, I've always decided that I would always fight for the people who feel they don't have a voice. That is my mission statement in life. I am running because I want to make sure that we have leadership, good, strong leadership, to move the city forward in a responsible way. I'm a teacher at Central Cabarrus High School, so I know as business owners out there, you're looking for good, qualified individuals that may choose to or choose not to go to college, but you're looking for good, strong candidates that you can hire and employ. Well, I'm helping to feed you those students. And so my goal, again, is to make Harrisburg even better than what it is. And I would appreciate a vote for Wendell Fant. Thanks.
Chris?
Thanks for having us here tonight, and thanks to the Harrisburg Business Network. I know we're going to talk about our community, but we'd be remiss if we didn't send out our hearts and prayers to the folks in Lewiston, Maine. I know they're going through a lot in their community, but let's talk about our community. I've been here 30 plus years. I have 3 different houses in Harrisburg over that period of time, so obviously we chose to be here. And the reason we chose to be here was we wanted our children to grow up in a great school system and have a neighborhood feel. And we got that, and it's come full circle for me. My children moved away, and they went to Texas, and they went to New York and South Carolina, and now they're back, and I have grandkids here. And I'd love for them to wash, rinse, and repeat that whole cycle here in Harrisburg. But it won't go well if we don't mind the store. Growth has to be reasonable. It has to be controlled. It has to be managed. We've got a good thing here. We need to protect and defend that good thing that we have, or the next 30 years won't go like the last 30 years. When we came here, there were 4,000 residents. There's close to 20,000 now. We have to plan for the infrastructure, the traffic, the schools, the fire and safety. All that has to be planned and accounted for. The decisions that this town council makes will live on for a long time. If we put a giant big box store out here and it doesn't thrive, what are you going to do with that big box 20 years from now? Is it going to be a thrift store? We need to think, and we need to protect the valuations and the values that are already here. My allegiance is to the folks of Harrisburg. I'd love to bring as many people as we can as fast as we can, but we're here. We're paying the taxes. We built this. We have to curate that. We have to be careful with it. We have to protect it, and that's what I'll do. Think of me as your reasonable neighbor who will be in there fighting for you while you carry on and you raise your children and you raise your grandchildren. There's somebody in there who's been here 30 years who thinks like you. Thank you for your time.
Latricia?
Close.
Good evening, I'm Latricia Glover, and I'd like to tell you about why I'm running for Harrisburg Town Council. So when my husband and I purchased our home here in 2015, we were very intentional about that. And we intend to grow old here in Harrisburg, and our prayer is that our children will want to return to Harrisburg when they're older and then when they have their own children. But in order to make that happen, we have to make sure that we're making decisions today and thinking about what that'll look like long term. So to be able to do that, I think it's important that we're able to work with the people around us. And given my professional and personal experiences, I'm able to work with a bunch of different personalities to have hard conversations. And I think it's super important that we always have the best interests of Harrisburg at the center. So as long as those decisions always come back to, well, what is best for Harrisburg and what does that look like long term, I think that we'll be able to make significant progress. And in that, I think that we should always consider prioritizing our small businesses, making sure that we're partnering with them to do what's necessary to promote their growth, and then also protecting our town's employees. That means attracting the best of our town's employees and then retaining them. And then the last one is making sure that as we grow our town, we do so with intention. And also, I want you to know that when you see me, you hear me, please reach out. Please talk to me. Please ask me questions. Please share your concerns with me, because I am an advocate to my core. In my professional life, I'm a social worker. I want to always know and have that connection with the community to know what is going on so that I can better advocate for what the community feels is a need. And lastly, I want to always be aware and make the decisions that are best for the town of Harrisburg. Thank you, and I look forward to serving you on the Harrisburg Town Council.
Justin?
Good evening. Thanks to the HBN for having us here tonight, and for Pastor Henderson for lending us this great, nice gathering center on the opposite side of the church building. My name is Justin Hegler. I'm a resident of Harrisburg for 27 of my 34 years on this earth, taxpayer for the last 4. We moved back with my family, my beautiful wife, and 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old. We did some time in Kannapolis, did some time in Charlotte, and being born and raised here, former Central Cabarrus student, I was like, hey, let's get into Harrisburg, let's get planted, and that's where we want to do life. I'm a former Hickory Ridge high school teacher and football coach there, and a current manager and director at Chick-fil-A down the road. You may have seen me in there. What I'm going to bring to town council, if elected, is that servant leadership that I do every day. It's the guest, it's the person that comes in wanting a service, it's the food. It's also building a team of leaders around me. It's not about me, it's about the team that we develop to then give you a great experience. So like many of you have said behind me, it is about we. My goal is to go across lines, go across maybe some drama here and there to come to a like-minded table, same conversation. I'm looking to help build and support the service members here in Harrisburg, as well as town connectivity to these great parks here. We walk to the parks to these awesome events, and sometimes we're dipping traffic, and it'd be cool if we had some sidewalks and some right-of-ways here and there for public safety and as the foot traffic as well. So would love to have your vote. I'll put you first. It's where I'm going to raise my family, so I'm going to make sure we do the right things to have you and your family live in the same life. Thank you.
Ian?
Thank you all. I'm Ian Patrick. Mark Twain said there were 2 types of public speakers, and 50% of them are nervous and the other 50% are liars. So bear with me. I'm a current councilman. This is my first term I'm serving out. I'm also chair of the Board of Adjustment. I've been the council liaison for Planning and Zoning Board, as well as the Sustainability Advisory Board. I'm a small business owner. My wife and I own a small architecture company just down the road here in University City, and we do mostly public work. I have 2 children, 13 and 4, who are here with us tonight, thankfully. I was also on the CPNI Board of Directors, and CPNI, if you don't know, is a small group that goes around small rural towns in North Carolina, helping them with economic development. A lot of the rural towns in North Carolina have been destroyed, unfortunately, by various policies over the years, and we go help them try to bring their economic activity back up so we can help them out. I said in 2019, I'll say it again, those towns would kill for the opportunities we have. But we have to be careful, because the reason people live here is because of the small town feel. And we want to keep that. And in order to keep that small town feel, we have to make sure that developments that are coming into this town are consistent with our values. That doesn't mean 1,000 homes. That doesn't mean 10,000 homes. That doesn't mean the homes that Rodney talked about where 400 people showed up in an auditorium and that council basically forgot everything they knew and just said, you know what, we're going to vote for it anyway because we need rooftops and tax dollars. That is not how we've been operating over the past 4 years since I've been in there. And if I'm lucky enough to be back in there, that's not how we're going to operate anymore. I was also co-chair of the United States Green Building Council Board of Directors. I was on the American Institute of Architects Legislative Review Committee, and I'm also a North Carolina SEER Certified Disaster Relief Inspector. One of my jobs was to go down after Hurricane Florence and inspect homes for people that were just trying to get back to their way of life. And it was heartbreaking to have to tell them that, you know, your home is unsafe. And so we need to also be able to respond to disasters when they occur, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. And thankfully, we have a fantastic town staff. And we have a council currently that has been supporting them both monetarily and with policies that they are happy about. And if you have a happy staff and a good working relationship, you don't have attrition, and then council can do their job properly. Finally, the only thing I'd say is that because I'm an architect by training, I know how towns and cities are designed and built. And I know what it takes to have good economic opportunity because I'm a small business owner. And so I bring that specific skill set to town council. I think I've been effective thus far, and I hope to continue for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. That concludes the introduction portion of this evening. Now we're going to get into the actual questions. Arlo, who's going to have our first answer here this evening? Okay, so the way this is going to work, Robin's going to answer the first question, then we're going to move on to Ron, and so on. All right? Oh, sure. Happy birthday to the mayor, who turned 29 today. All right. As I mentioned, I have not seen these questions here, so. Spence is killing me. All right. How are you going to help support small businesses, new and existing, to grow so that locals can live, work, and prosper here instead of going to surrounding communities like Charlotte? And just FYI, for this part, if we can limit the questions, or excuse me, limit the answers to the questions to about a minute, that would be wonderful for the purpose of us being able to get through 8 or 9 questions tonight. I will stand up at around a minute or so that could be your cue. If I'm still standing, and about 10 seconds later, Arlo will stand up. All right? All right. And the mic. Thank you.
That's a very good question. As a small business owner myself, I run Access Locksmith, have since 1987. Used to do business with the town, and suddenly the town locked me out and would not do business with me at all. I don't know why. That happened whenever there was a manager here, Michelle Reeve-Smith, and no one has seen fit to do business with me since from the town. They did want, at one point, some kind of a conflict of interest signed, and I was on no board that could spend one dime, so I didn't sign it. So maybe that's the reason why, but it seems to me that the town has reached out to surrounding areas for things that they could have gotten in town, and that would be maybe the first step, is for the town to use local business instead of reaching out elsewhere. Apart from that, it's kind of hard to say what you would do for a small business, because one of the biggest things you want to do for them is not tax them out of business. And one of the things that has helped is the repeal of the licensing thing. Though it wasn't much, it was still something. So it's kind of a very hard question to say, how does government create jobs? And I don't have a real good answer for you, but maybe we'll find out.
Ron? All right, if you candidates can put the mic a little bit closer to your mouth. Apparently there's some feedback or issues online.
There we go. So I I can tell you what we've done poorly in the past, and that's always been around economic development. And when I say that, when I came in 2015, there was an economic development director, and the belief was rooftops drove retail, drove businesses. And we saw that go on and on and on, and we built this place, and we built all these houses, and we didn't see the retail, we didn't see the local businesses thriving as they should. Then they took that away, and they put a town manager in that role, and he wasn't very successful. And then they went to the polar opposite and put in a planning and zoning director to make him also our economic director. The town's never really fully understood economic development, and I won't stand here and profess that I know it either. I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, and I couldn't tell you what it all takes, but I will tell you, we finally have a plan together. We've contacted and contracted through a firm in our last council meeting. We set that up to come in and do a full study and figure out how we can be successful. They're going to build us the plan and show us how we can support our local businesses and how we can grow our footprint and bring in more commercial dollars to our economy. So we're not relying on the rooftops to support us, but we have the businesses here to support us. Thank you.
I'm going to make it easy and just stand up here and answer. Ron said the first part is we put in the budget last year and did it last council meeting to get a professional in here and tell us what we really need, because even though I am a small business owner and I know what works for an architecture firm, I don't have a clue what works for a restaurant or a brewery or anything like that. And frankly, I don't think, even though all of us want certain things in town, we all don't know exactly what this town could attract. And so we brought in a professional to do just that. They're going to tell us what the area wants, what the area needs, what the town can support, what the existing folks that live here can support. And then we have a roadmap. This is an actionable plan. This isn't a plan that you do and then go stick on a shelf somewhere. They're going to say, all right, now we have this information. Go out there and recruit type X, Y, and Z business. Now, that is to say new businesses, but obviously we need to support our current businesses. I think that's a group effort. For one, the town has to support them, so we have to give them the support they need. Make sure we're not being a hindrance to them. You know, a lot of times government can be a roadblock, and we need to make sure that we're just getting out of the way. That's step one. Step two, as a community, we need to support those businesses. You know, it's easy to go to the Walgreens or the CVS, but you know, maybe it's time to switch over to Harrisburg Hometown Pharmacy, maybe do some local businesses. So I think it's going to be a team effort. So hope we can keep that up and look forward to good things to come.
Well, it goes back to community and networking and making people feel welcome. And also, I think, incentivizing small businesses to be here. What does that look like? You know, y'all are reaching out to professionals now and getting the information you need. You could go down to Rocky River Coffee and ask them what makes them so successful, you know, and the Harrisburg Hardwares and the staples of the city are doing something correct. Like a Friday night, I like to take my kids to Rocky River Coffee because they have ice cream, and it's a pretty good price. So they're attracting us in, and I'm not going to Kannapolis. I'm not going right past the city line to Charlotte. So, you know, inviting small businesses in, incentivizing, and networking in community.
So I think the most important step is to talk to our existing small businesses. Ask them what drew them to Harrisburg, and then partner with them and see where they think the gaps are. Because our small businesses they're the crutch of our community. So when we talk to them, know what they have to offer, and then we partner with our town council and not create ordinances and things that make it more difficult for small businesses to come here, then we're able to grow our community. And then that also helps us economically because then those dollars stay right here in Harrisburg. So the biggest part, again, is to make sure that we're leveraging our partners that we already have here in the town.
I'm going to be retiring soon, but in my current job, our company works with 30,000 small businesses a month across the United States. And I know what it's like for a small business to bet, in some cases, their life's fortune on whether they're going to make it or not. One of the things we've seen, though, is if you get business in, it's contagious. So if I can drop my kid off to the karate lesson and I can go get my coffee and pick up my dry cleaning and then run home to the grocery store, that works. But if I'm going to go and leave Harrisburg and I'm up at Concord Mills, I'm going to buy my coffee up there. I'm going to get my car washed up there. So you have to have this contagious network of businesses that complement each other, don't necessarily go head to head and bang each other. If you'd asked me 30 years ago, all we had was the Food Lion down here in the Chinese restaurant, that we would have 2 Harris Teeters, a Publix, and a Lowe's, and they're all busy, they're not going out of business, that would have surprised me in a very short period of time. We can support that business. It has to be the right business. Town center right here, got some land, going begging. Let's get it right. Let's get the right businesses in. Let's invite them in. Let's cultivate that relationship and let them work together to build a shopping community. Live here, buy here. Thank you.
I think one of the best ways to support them is to promote them, not advertise, but to promote them. Let everyone know the companies that we have here, that's here and existing, and really promote and serve those companies. I know small businesses make up 60% of the workforce. I also believe that we need to prepare our next level or our next generation of the workforce and give them a reason to stay here and to keep those businesses flourishing, producing good quality candidates for those jobs that are needed. So with those two things, I believe it's really we could really do a great job promoting and preparing our next level or our next generation of workers and give them a reason to stay here, keep that talent here.
So this is a hard question. We have started an economic study, but what will we do for the small businesses? Well, first of all, you have to have the right product. So that's going to be up to the small business owner to determine what the right product is. 3 years ago, we did, through the pandemic, receive money from the federal government that we gave stipends or handouts to businesses that were located, and they were brick and mortar buildings in Harrisburg. So if we are to give from your tax dollars a tax credit to a small business, where are those funds coming from? They're coming from your tax dollars. So this is something that we have to balance very careful and how to handle that. And I don't really think anybody knows the answer yet. But the economic study that the 2 previous councilmen talked about will help us determine. And you got to remember, a business is going to know whether they can survive here, and they're only going to come here if they can make money, because the bottom line, mainly for them, is to make money.
I, for one, am also very excited about that economic study because I am very intrigued to see how this is going to turn out and what type of businesses would be most beneficial here. I myself am a small business owner. I came to Harrisburg owning Essential Radiant Skincare. I am a facialist. I pamper many of you ladies in this room. And I recently just bought Utopia Salon, Spa, and Tan here in Harrisburg. And I can say firsthand, when I bring in a professional employee, okay, a technician, I am telling them it is up to you to go hustle and get that client. You need to let people know what it is that you're offering and why you're the best choice over so-and-so down the street. So obviously, I have 7 hairstylists that work in one room, okay? What's the difference between each of them? Their personality, the ambiance, the service that they offer. And so when it comes to how can we help grow these businesses, I can tell you as a customer, when you have a service, it really does help us when you give us a review online. I mean, how many of us are online, on Yelp, on Google, giving our experience? I can tell you this too. When you give a negative review and you don't let the professional service provider know what it is that they did that they could have serviced you better, it hinders us as small business owners. I see it every single day, especially on our Harrisburg Facebook forum. They are not helping the small business owner. I understand when we have a bad experience, we want to let people know, like, hey, don't use them. I didn't have a quality experience. But I can tell you, if you ask that service provider, that restaurant owner, the manager, whoever it is, hey, you didn't provide me with the service that you told me you would give me, I can guarantee, as a service provider, it is our job and our goal to meet your expectations. We want to do a good job for you. So please, you can do us a favor by letting us know. If we're not meeting your standard, let your service provider know. We would be more than happy to accommodate and to accomplish that for you.
Okay, as we move on to the next question, that question will be answered first by... Okay, so Justin, you will go first, followed by followed by Ian. We'll reverse direction. This next question kind of piggybacks off the small business question. With various businesses in the area and various areas being what appears to be full, how do we address the vacancies and lack of development in and within Harrisburg Town Center?
I can imagine rent is high, right? To stay in a spot, which then naturally makes me not want to spend money there because their prices are too high, which then shuts the doors for good because everybody's feeling that way. So how can you get small businesses in here to this beautiful town center that's been mostly vacant since 2005? How do you get people staying? It's like the tap houses. What are they doing correctly? What is Rocky River doing correctly? How do you get them in these areas? How do you promote this area online? How do you go out and attract the business? I think it's a work in progress. I think some people are doing it well, and the ways that they are doing it need to be advocated for, and that'll be the cheat sheet for everyone else that tries to come here and stay here.
So once again, the current council has put in last year's budget a plan for that. So it's particularly town center. We've got a plan for basically an overlay district and a vision for town center. Part of the problem has been that, if you want businesses to come in, they need a place to be, and they need development for it. And if we don't know what we want, it's not attractive to developers. And so we have to decide what we want here, put a plan in place, potentially some tax incentives for some number of years, and then that makes it very, very attractive for developers all across the country to come in here and say, hey, look, we've met your plan exactly. And we'll say, great, move forward. There's no fight. They don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a design only to get turned down because they don't know what we want. Let's tell them what we want, and they'll come here and do it. That's kind of the first thing. The second thing is, town center was originally designed with these sort of odd, they called them PUDs, planned unit developments, which is what you get when you do these, just one business on one thing. It's not an urban design, which is what you want, and you have to pair that with a public space, whether it's a park or a place for a fountain, so that people go and take their kids and they let them play in the fountain and in the area, and then they go inside and get ice cream. And the parents go inside and get lunch, and it's permeable. And then what you get is people driving by say, oh, wow, look, there's a lot of people out there just kind of hanging out. Let's go hang out there the next day. And so what you need is all of that. You need all of that to make sure that those businesses are successful. And then once you start putting those things in place, then the next business comes, and the next business comes, and the next business comes, because they say, I can be more successful in that place because the town has decided and figured out what the residents wanted and got their input and decided that this is what they want for their town center, and then we're going to give it to them.
So I won't repeat what Councilman Patrick said. He was spot on there. What I will give you the background is that since being on this council since 2015, I have seen a development being proposed that was considered apartments. At one point, someone called them Section 8 apartments. It got a lot of bad press. The developer was not happy. They wanted to know how that happened. The project didn't receive a lot of support. we went from there to another plan came in, and the town was even willing, somewhere around 2018, 2019, to do a bridge loan. I was not a big supporter of this bridge loan because I never felt the town should be a financial institution. I understand helping, but I also wanted to protect the residents' tax dollars too. As we move forward, that development ended up, the investors backed out, so here we are again. And what people seem to not connect is they think Town Center is owned by the town. Town Center is a private owner. So any sale that goes through has to go through that private owner, and they have to be in agreement of what's being built. They brought in the developers. If any of you guys have been out to Kannapolis Ballpark, they brought in that developer to come in, which I absolutely love some of the work they've done out there. But even as they got closer, we still couldn't get to a common ground. We found a great development they were proposing, but there were still pieces, as Ian said, that didn't fully match up. So understand the challenge is not just the town on this. The town also has to work with the private owner, and the private owner has to be on the same page with the town.
That was a very good question, and having been here this long, I can tell you that this development, where we're standing right now, was originally a hardware store. They could not make it because the rent was so high. The developers who put this place together fought over what the price of the development should be, and their partnership dissolved over it. The pricing in this development has always been extremely high, and many of the places that have departed from here have told me that their rent doubled or tripled, and they could not afford to stay. What can the town do for this? As Councilman Smith says, the town does not own this development. So that is a very good question. What can the town do? And perhaps what Councilman Patrick said about the tax incentive might be of benefit, but that's a very difficult thing to balance, because how much of your tax dollars do you want to give to a small business to succeed? So that leaves a lot to be answered, and I hope that this study that the council has put forward will be able to bring an answer for that.
If you can all just keep the microphone a little closer to your mouth, I'm told we're having some issues with the feed.
I personally did look into renting, leasing a space here in Town Center myself. That was in 2021, and I was moving my business over from Dilworth in Charlotte to here, and I was looking for a single space, 690 square feet here in Town Center, $1,800 a month. Now, coming as a new business owner, and I have hustle and I have drive, I was willing to pay that price because I'm like, I need to be where my kids are. I need to be where my family is. But really considering how many clients am I going to have to get in here to make it without tanking immediately, right? And let's not forget, you also have a security deposit on that too, right? And then you have to upfit the whole thing. It was a big number for me. And so to me, I would like to see, especially for Town Center, an area that could be utilized so well. Like Mr. Patrick said, how nice would it be to be able to see families come and congregate here? If we could put the squeeze on some of these developers and say, like, hey, we want to utilize this land and we want it to be of benefit to this community. What can you do to help us build up this area? Not only will it benefit your community, the very community that you chose to invest in, but this also gives back to you. And so to me, it's there again, the collaboration piece. What are we doing to work with this developer who doesn't seem to be wanting to lease this land or to have new business owners come in? What are we doing to work with them to gain the most benefit from it?
The $128,000 question is, what are you going to do with Town Center? Let's go back to when it was first designed. What rules were put in place? What stipulations were put that have prevented us from now? Look, I want Harrisburg to be unique. And just because we can do it, should we do it? Do you want to, as you drive down 49, look above Food Line and see a 4-story parking deck, a 4 or 5-story apartment building? First of all, we need to finish this study. We need to know what Harrisburg can be. We're not a town that is like Belmont or Mount Holly that has a quaintness from years ago. Even if I was to do something very odd and say I'm going to put a half-mile lake through downtown Harrisburg, that's ridiculous, but would it give it the ambience? I don't think so. So let's see what the study says. Then we can go from there, and you've got to remember, like I said before, businesses are going to go where they can make money, and they're doing their research. So you've got to have that unique product. But here again, why do they want to come to Harrisburg? There's a reason. Why are they leaving where they were? There's a reason. So let's just look at this study first and then go from there. And then the residents will also have an opportunity to come before council and give their thoughts and say, this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, because you are going to be the one that's going to have to keep those small businesses afloat with your tax dollars.
So I believe an informed council will certainly make the best decision. So I would co-sign on that study. However, this is our city, our town. You know, we can frame it how we need it to be, right? If we're looking for this town to be a certain way, we need to find and work with those developers that's going to help us achieve that. If we're talking about small businesses, every small business may not have 20 or 30 people. Sometimes they have 2 or 3. So they may need a space, and they're just getting started. So they may need a space that they can afford coming out the gate. We just don't have that at this point. And I just think if we offered that and if we promoted that, we have a lot more smaller businesses that's coming here to live and certainly to work and keep those dollars here in Harrisburg. Thanks.
Thought that train was coming through the building. So anybody remember Eastland Mall in Charlotte, North Carolina? I grew up around Eastland Mall, and it was beautiful. It had a skating rink. It was state-of-the-art, bricks and mortar and everything. And you know the end of that story. What really matters is our community. If we take care of our community and we have a quality of life, they will find us. I think we have to be real careful and grow slowly, responsibly. There's an old adage about get rich slowly and be very careful. I think about COVID. If this town center had been fully occupied, you would have seen tumbleweeds and going out of business signs, and that is just a blight on the community. So those businesses have to be reasonable. They have to be able to make it, but don't confuse. If we could wave the magic wand and build North Lake Mall here, last time I saw North Lake Mall, it was on the news with a shooting. I don't know if we need that. I do like Panera. I ordered DoorDash and it came right to the door. That was fantastic, and I love the Chick-fil-A. So let's grow, but let's grow responsibly, and it's okay to grow slowly and take our time, but if we're who they want, those businesses will find us. We won't have to find them. Thank you.
So as we're growing our town and hoping to grow our small businesses here, I do think, again, it's important to leverage that partnership. So I'm grateful to hear that we're really waiting to hear what this study shows of what our town needs, but then we also need to hear also from the people that live here. What are we going to patronize? And what are we going to support even on the local social media pages? Because that's valid. When people get a terrible review, you're not going to go back there. So, and also when we're here in this town center, I think it's important to highlight that there was a zoning change that took place here. So I'm curious to see what that is going to look like as we continue to see the town of Harrisburg change.
Okay, that concludes question 2. The next question will be addressed first by Crystal, and then we will go this way. So Robin, you will go next. The next question, we've already touched a little bit on small business. We touched on town center. This one is a little bit different. Would you advocate for a downtown Harrisburg similar to Union Street in Concord or Main Street in Kannapolis? Why and/or why not?
So the question is, would I advocate for it to be similar to downtown Concord or Kannapolis?
Correct.
Yes. Well, there again, I mean, I love the idea of having a place where the locals can go and where we can be together and enjoy community, the small amenities of the small business owners here. I, for one, do patronage the Kannapolis area often, going to the softball games, baseball games. Sorry, hubby, I know I said that wrong. Baseball games. And I love the area. I love watching the kids play in the fountains and being able to see what it is they're doing there. As far as Concord goes, it's a bit of a mess. I also looked at opening a shop there on their main street too, and they've got a lot going on, but I do feel like they do have a concept that is going to bring people together, and if those businesses, which I know are really hurting right now in the moment, if they can stick it out, I think they are going to have a really good thing going for the local business owner there in Concord. So yes, I personally would advocate for the businesses to be able to come in and grow here. I do understand the responsible growth and that we need to choose wisely. But there again, if you're a business owner, you have a vision, you have a dream, you have a plan, you're gonna push that thing to make it happen. And ideally, we're not gonna see it tank, and ideally it is gonna be something that is supported by this research study that's being done for the economic development. So I would like to see something thrive here.
Would I advocate for a,
Would you advocate for a downtown Harrisburg similar to Union Street in Concord or Main Street in Kannapolis?
yes. There was a proposal for this town center several years ago that would have done just that. It did fall through. So yes, I would propose that. The good question would be, where would you want to put that? Would you want to put it on 49? Well, that's going to be kind of hard to do. So you're going to have to move off of 49 and come back here into town center or any new development. But yes, I would advocate for that. And the plan that was put forward several years ago, I think, was a fairly good one that had the mixed use along this area right out here that would have created what I think they're calling in many cities now a social district. And it would have been something different for Harrisburg for sure. Maybe not quaint, because quaint has long gone as Harrisburg's history has been pushed away. So yes, I would actually advocate for the downtown similar to Concord.
So let's go back to the past. I can tell you how much time has been lost in think tanks from previous councils sitting in the chambers trying to figure out what it's going to take, whether it's going to be here, whether it's going to be Farmington. As Mr. Torrance mentioned, there is a new law that just passed in the state of North Carolina about social districts. We started discussing looking at a social district for Farmington. Jim Merrifield, who was developing Farmington, came to us and said, hey, he wants to put in a social district. And, you know, for the most part, council is on board, but at the same time, we are all very cautious because when anything is new, there's always going to be challenges with it. So we have taken a step back to see how others are implementing, making sure that we follow the laws, that we don't get ourselves in a situation that would challenge us. I think it would be a benefit here. We've talked about doing it in town center as well. And when you have those social districts, then you have that opportunity for more business to come and grow. As Councilman Patrick mentioned, you know, the parents come, they sit over at Percent Tap House. There's a play area for the kids. There's a park over in Charlotte, very similar, out off Providence Road that I've seen, same situation. So it's not that we wouldn't ever advocate. We have been advocating. It's making sure we've got all the pieces together. And then it comes back to, we've got a private landowner that has to make a deal. No matter how many developers we bring to them, they have to be on the same page with that developer. If not, all time is lost, all money spent is lost. Therefore, we're back to square one in what you've seen here. So yes, I don't think anyone would challenge you on that question.
I would advocate for whatever the residents wanted. Rodney will get up here and repeat the same thing, that we're not a Concord. I've heard him say it many times. We are our own town, and we like the small town feel, and we want to keep it that way. That doesn't mean we can't have something here in Town Center, but we also want what the people who currently live here want, and that's what we need to do. You know, there's a running joke on, the forums about, can we get another oil change place? Can we get another fast food restaurant? Not knowing that town council has no control over a business that wants to put themselves there if they're in the right zoning. But like I said earlier, what we can do is ask the residents what they want and put a plan in place that says, this is what the town wants, this is what the residents want, and make it attractive to developers. And so that's what I think we should do. And if that ends up being something like Concord or whatever it is, okay, fine, but we are our own identity and we don't need to be like anybody else.
Well, there it is. It's a snowball question, right? Because it's like, well, I advocate for that. And then it's like, well, that means you want big time growth and you want traffic and you want this and that. Well, I think it goes back to the question of infrastructure and where. We're all familiar with the infamous 4th of July festivals, right? Christmas festivals. I think we manage those very well. There's a plan in place. You invite the vendors. You tell the people this is what's happening, and it's managed very well. So do I advocate for something like those guys? Sure. I'm a resident with a family as well. I hate having to drive 30 minutes up the road to Kannapolis. It would be cool to pull my kids in the wagon and be chatting with my wife walking to this place that we call our hometown center or whatever. So I advocate for it. Obviously, it's a snowball question because it comes with infrastructure and growth. And so we want the small town feel. So manage it. How do you have both? That's the question.
So having grown up here in Cabarrus County, I never in a million years would have thought that Kannapolis would be a trendsetter. Never would have seen that coming. However, I would absolutely advocate for Harrisburg to have something like that. We are very much a bedroom town. We're only here to sleep. We travel other places to work. We shouldn't also have to travel other places to be able to do things with our family and enjoy that. I don't know what the location looks like, but I do know that the town center has been vacant for the majority of the time of its existence for a number of reasons. So I do think that it makes sense to have something like that. Again, there are some concerns that come along with that, but there are nuances and things that we can look at other areas and see how to improve it. But I do think that it would be a great idea for Harrisburg to have something like that, especially, our social district and all the other fun things that come along that we can do with our families here in Town Center.
So I hope you guys are going to come out and vote on November 7th. Consumers vote with their feet. So if they walk through and darken your door and come through and visit your business, they're voting for you every day. We have an opportunity because we have Town Center here and a chance to build it up. And you can catch a lot of fish on their way to Mount Pleasant, on their way to Concord, on their way back to UNCC, on their way to Raleigh. We have to be careful. Do we want that? One of the number one questions I get is, what are you going to do about traffic? So if I was going to do something about traffic, I'm not sure I would try to just, boom, develop and put all this stuff in, because it will create traffic. And what Rodney said earlier, I'm not sure I want a 4-story parking deck back there. Let's be careful what we wish for. We might just get it. Our strength is also our weakness. Our weakness is we weren't born with a downtown. We didn't really have a main street. We sort of conjured this up out of the air. But that can be our strength because we have a chance to develop it. If you've been to downtown Concord, they've had that street torn up forever doing I don't know what. We don't have to go through that. We could have a planned, modernized, wide sidewalk, place to do your dog and get ice cream and all that because we can control it. So our weakness may be that we don't have that quaint downtown, but our strength is that we can control the outcome. So through plan development, I think we have an opportunity here.
I would say yes, I would support that. But again, remaining responsible as we do that. I don't think we have to have the big box parking deck or anything like that. But it still can be nice, it still can be uniformity, and it can be inviting. I think Kannapolis is an inviting place. Concord, downtown Concord is an inviting place. They have a little nightlife that you can go and hang out there as an adult and get some adult entertainment. I love jazz, right? But we had to go elsewhere to hear it. You got to go downtown Concord or Charlotte to get that. And I think it's a big opportunity for us to, again, keep some of those dollars here, which is what we want to do. What we want to focus on is to keep those dollars here so our small businesses can continue to grow. Thanks.
Well, here again, folks, I want Harrisburg to be unique. And again, I say, what do we have in Harrisburg that we can claim other than rail and moving food from the fields into town? We have state roads. I'm not for social districting. I'm not for where you can have 4 or 5 buildings and you can walk outside with your alcoholic container from one store to the next store. Where is our downtown going to be? Is it going to be in Farmington, like one of the other council members said? Is it going to be here? As one of the other candidates said, we've got infrastructure we've got to look at first. So, when do we get the roads? I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I do not want apartments in Harrisburg. I do not want apartments in town center. There was a plan a number of years ago for 336 units, right? And they said, well, there'll be townhomes, but they couldn't give a number of how many were going to be rental. And here again, the parking deck. And it gets back to this land use. There is somebody else that owns it. There has been talk, do we as a town buy it? Do you want your tax dollars spent? These are things that will come out, again, with this economic study. So I want us to be very careful and have that hometown feel. But I want, as we cross the line from Mecklenburg County into Harrisburg, I want it to be unique. I want it to be different. I don't want it to be Pineville. I don't want it to be Huntersville. I don't want it to be Cornelius. I don't want it to be Mooresville. I want it to be unique Harrisburg. And we have a chance, an opportunity to look at that now with our staff, with our council that we have in play. So let's give it an opportunity. And here again, the study is going to solicit you, the residents, and your vote and your opinion. So please look at social media. Stay tuned. Come to council meetings and know when you're there being asked for your opinion that you give us those opinions. Thank you.
Okay, as we find ourselves about halfway through tonight's forum, the next question will be answered first by Wendell and be followed by Mr. Fant. I'm sorry, you are Mr. Fant. By Mr. Four. And this question, it wouldn't be a forum without this question. I almost believe this one's been borrowed from other forums in the past. So looking back at our town's decisions in the few past years, is there anything you would have done differently and why?
What would I've done differently? Well, it seems that this developer is a challenge. Maybe I would have looked at that a little different and have a developer that really took the town in consideration. It seems that they're strong-holding or strong-arming the city in doing what they want. I would focus on a developer that has the small town feel to it. Again, it just doesn't seem like this one does. So maybe that's a change that I will look at. With new businesses coming in, allow them to have a uniformity look. Again, you have 15 different buildings, you have 15 different looks. Have that in place so that it can look uniform, it can look inviting, and people will want to come here to work, to live, because this is an amazing place to work and live.
I think one of the things, there is a uniform development ordinance that's out there, and it was last amended in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And I see some of the new development going up, and it's a wonderful document. You should read it. It's 411 pages, so if you're having trouble sleeping tonight, open it up. It's online. You can read through it. It talks about keeping Harrisburg, the spirit, the community, that town vibe in place. But when I see a new development go up and they clear cut the trees, I'm looking through the document saying, where can we save those trees? Where can we require that developer to keep a certain amount of those? I think it's to their benefit. When you just go in and clear cut, you don't get that feel. It takes years to recover from that. So if there's anything we could look back on, that document is wonderful, but let's take another look at it, see if we can get it more updated and protect the land that we do have left to get it right.
So if there was a few things that I would change that have happened over the few years, or last several years, it would have been development. It would have been more intentional, and the communications with all of the other parties involved with development would have absolutely played a role in that. That would have prevented us being in this place that we are now with development. Then also making sure that there was an intentional effort to partner with the owner of the area here that we're in today to see if there was anything that could have been done earlier, because this place has been here since 2005. So in that time, many of these spaces have sat vacant. That's almost 20 years. So that definitely would have been addressed. And then also, we have an area of Harrisburg right off of Farmer Road that routinely floods. There would have been a study done, completed, and a solution in place by now to address the flooding over on Farm Mill.
Candidate Fall took my answer. So yeah, it's a massive document, and I was challenged on the forum myself recently to check out those ordinances, is plural, and there are things in place to protect residential areas from massive commercial zoning. For example, I have commercial growth happening behind my house soon, and I'm just praying to God that it's nothing crazy. So it is, how do you protect the values of the people in Harrisburg? And I think it's loud and clear that scraping all these lots is a tragedy in itself. So how do you strong arm and hold developers accountable, making it tough? I mean, we have a desirable city, a town that's growing. They're going to want to be here, so they're going to do what they need to do. They're going to obey different ordinances that we set in place and make it hard for them to kind of swindle and get rid of this beautiful, massive trees here and there. Press Pro came in down the road for me and did okay. They left some standing and they didn't scrape it, so I was thankful for that. There's still a barrier in between. So yeah, ordinances being a little bit tougher on those developers.
Thanks. So when I ran in 2019, I said that the Unified Development Ordinance that we're all talking about needed a rewrite. And I was on the subcommittee that rewrote that 2 years ago. If I had to do it over again, I would have pushed them harder. I probably would have hired a different consultant. We got a lot of the things that we wanted, but they didn't tailor it to Harrisburg individually. They kind of just gave us a boilerplate one that's just been going all over the United States, frankly. And I pushed where I could with the time that I had, and I probably would have pushed harder if I could do it over again. In terms of tree protection, you're going to see at the council meeting over the next couple of months, whether I'm there or not, a text amendment. We just put on the Planning and Zoning Board an arborist that worked for the City of Concord, and he said, we can ask developers to submit us topographic plans to make sure that they can't clear cut unless they absolutely have to. So you'll see that text amendment soon, so we're going to put an end to that. We actually did strengthen our tree protection measures already, but we're going to strengthen them even more. And so That document is a living document. It can be changed. You're going to see a lot of text amendments. I had lunch with the planning director. I said, we need to get these things done, fix the things that we can, and strengthen it. Unfortunately, at that time, I did what I could to get it through with the council that was there at the time. I think the current council would push through anything that would strengthen it now.
So when I started tonight, I told you it's not one, it's we. Okay? 2015, when I came in, we were facing the clear cutting that candidate Fall mentioned, and we did not have anything in place at that time. So, talked with the planning and zoning director at that time. We took in Huntersville's tree ordinance, and that was our first start at it. It has been a constant battle, and when I say it takes we, you heard Councilman Patrick tonight just state all the things that he's got coming up that he's been working on with the planning and zoning director to get these things in place. From 2015 to 2017 to 2018 to 2021, now 2023. So you've got to be diligent in what you're doing. You know, when we talk about past decisions, you can drive up and down 49, and one of our past bad decisions was the ability of consistency. You can look from the bank to Chick-fil-A to Walgreens to Lowe's Foods, all the way up. How many ways can you build a wall? There should be only one. There should be a consistent wall throughout town, but we've got 3 different iterations, probably 4, maybe more. The last thing that I would say that was the biggest mistake, in my opinion, that changed the look of this town and changed the amount of folks involved in politics locally was the indiscretion of the council at the time to dismiss the residents when we had a meeting at the high school. When we had to move our local town council meeting from next door to a high school, that should have woke up some eyes, and it didn't. And I'm glad to say today, those eyes should be open because there's all new people in those seats today, and there's a reason for that. Thank you.
Much has been said now about trees, and I would agree. If you look where the Panera and the Tractor Supply are now, right through there used to be a beautiful row of oak trees. They've all been clear cut. One of the problems with the development and the things that are now is the stormwater. And the United States government is requiring stormwater to be as clean when it leaves your municipality as when it came in your municipality. So in order to do that, they've got to cut everything down, put in all this underground business, and it's maddening to me. It truly is. So I would like to see some kind of tree protection, some way to figure out how to make the stormwater work without getting rid of the trees, because you lose the trees, you lose your clean air, you lose so very much. And then as far as what I'd like to see, one of the things I think council has erred on is back in the early 2000s, we had council who did have lively discussions, but most all of their votes were 7-0. And as Councilman Dellinger pointed out tonight, all it takes is 4 votes against 3. And I would a whole lot rather see 7-0 as opposed to 4-3. At 7-0, you're leading. At 4-3, you're dividing.
I recently had attended the October Town Council meeting, and one of our active residents who's sitting up here in one of our front rows came up and he addressed the concern for traffic that is now yet to be an issue with the new developments that are taking place on Stallings, right? We know that we have 3 schools that you have access to from Stallings Road, between one of our elementaries, the middle school, as well as the high school. And of course, again, as we know, we have no choice, when a development decides to go in and we've okayed it to go in, and that was done by previous councils, like those are things that had already taken place. And so what I'm learning is when we develop irresponsibly, it does affect and create burdens for the generations to come. Now we're looking at some infrastructure issues like the water, like the sewer, like we're tapping out in some of those areas. And so when it comes to something that I wish we could have done differently, it, of course, is the development issue.
So the question was, what would I do different? Since I've been on council, they voted to allow alcohol in our Harrisburg Park. I voted no. I was the only one not for it. Don't think it should be there around children, but we're going to move on from that. What would have I done with previous councils? I would have not approved Harmony Acres on Stallings Road. I would have not approved Camellia Gardens on Stallings Road. I would have not approved the project beside Fentondale by Epcot, all right? I would make changes to the TIA that says that we do a study if it's 50 trips per day, all right? Decisions were made, there's still around 2,000 homes that were already by previous councils put on the books. We have no control over that. You know, when we talk about commercialism, we have very little control about that, in that if a property is being rezoned from residential to commercial, we have some say-so about that, but once it's zoned commercial, we can't say you can't put that on there. But the UDO dictates how certain things should go into that building. We're trying with, we got 2 vape shops in. We've tightened up the ordinance there so that that will not happen again, so that you'll not have strip clubs, so that you'll not have that. So we're working. So councils before did not think about future residents, right? And I am for the residents now, but I've also have to think about when my home was approved, did you think what my home was how it was gonna be affected 20 years from now? When you widen the road, when you have to do something else that's something different. So that's what I would change, is that councils would look more about how it's gonna affect the current residents 20 years down the road.
All right, now we're ready for another topic of discussion. Okay, so we will start this time with Ms. Glover, and Mr. Hagler, you will go next. This question is pretty straightforward. What's one thing you're most passionate about and hope to focus on if you're elected or re-elected?
One thing I'd like to focus on is transparency, making sure that when decisions are made here in Harrisburg, that we're clear about the process of how we got there, and hopefully that includes having a conversation with the areas that'll be impacted, and then look when we're making decisions of the cost that goes along with it, so that the taxpayers, that we know what that looks like, and then how we're voting and all of those things that go along on that end of it. So I think that absolutely the answer is transparency.
This is close to home, so this is a topic that it's easy, speaking from the heart. I live on a parallel road to 49, and it's at times of the day a drag strip to miss the Moorhead Road light and the light over there at O'Reilly Auto Parts. So what I would like to focus, if elected, is better back road protection, whether it's speed bumps, sidewalks, I get it, all the things that come with that. I personally would give up 5 feet of my yard to protect my family a little bit more. Town connectivity, how can I get to the park safely? There's beautiful parks that are being put in place for us to visit, but I really don't want to pack all 3 of my kids in the car, buckle them all up, get to the park, unbuckle them, and then you got to pack them up and then go back home. I want to pull the wagon, push the stroller safely to my destination. I have a longtime friend, Mac Robinson. He is a paraplegic for 40-some years, and that man rides his wheelchair up and down the back roads Hudson Drive, parallel back home. We talked, and he would love to have a foot tap for his feet that are just sitting there that he cannot move for safety purposes because he's trying to get some fresh air, get some sun. So what am I advocating for? Town connectivity and back road safety.
I'm passionate about design and quality of life. Obviously, my background is in architecture. I want to continue the hard work we've done on the Unified Development Ordinance and strengthen it some more. One of the things a lot of people don't think about very often is that neighborhood design and town design can affect whether you have a good quality of life or not. If you leave trees in the neighborhood, like we talked about, people will congregate under the trees and in the shade. If you're out in your yard, you get to know your neighbor. If you get to know your neighbor, your teenagers don't speed in your neighborhood. If your teenagers don't speed in your neighborhood, you have a safe neighborhood. All of those things can be traced back to whether you made good decisions in the design of your town or not, and that leads to quality of life, and that leads to community building. And the reason we all love Harrisburg, and even though it's grown so much, we still say small town feel, is because we know each other. And we've got to keep that, because if you let it get out of hand, you're going to build too much, and you're not going to care about the trees, and you're not going to care about your neighbors, and then it just leads to crime. There's actually a book that was published, I believe in the 80s, it was Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. That's been proven over and over and over again in urban design, and it's absolutely key that we abide by those principles. We can hire deputies, which we've done. We can continue to do that and be reactive to crime, or you can be proactive and stave off crime where it comes from, and that's from not knowing and not caring about your neighbor. Harrisburg is a place that we care about, and that's the reason that it's good and it's a great place to live. Low taxes, low crime, great schools. We need to continue that project. Let's keep working on the UDO to put those strategies in place. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm going to continue doing.
So if you didn't notice, I carry this sticker. Says I love Harrisburg. I adapted this in 2017 because truly that's what embodies me when I think about Harrisburg. But bigger than that, if you have been on social media, you know where my passion is. My passion is to get you the same information that I have. I will do everything I can to debunk the BS or the misinformation that you're receiving because someone heard a snippet here, snippet there, and they played the telephone game, and before you know it, we have a story that you wouldn't believe. Let me call you and tell you. I sit out there just because I would rather you have all the facts in front of you and know that your best interest truly is at heart. There's not funny games going on behind a wall somewhere that we meet. We have to do everything in public. And because we do things in public, things get heard. When we spitball ideas, things get heard. So it's interesting of the different stories, but my wife will tell you the phone calls that I get, the people that are upset, and I will sit and listen. I took one last night, 8:30, and I listened for 30 minutes, and I got, the best experience on the phone. I was able to help the person in many different ways. My passion has always been this community. The other side of that is also our local youth sports. I am very passionate when it comes to our Harrisburg Cowboys. These kids get out there and, they have a big commitment in front of them. And this year, I think we've got a team that's going to go all the way. Our 9U this year is top of the top. So if you get a chance this Saturday, go out and see these kids. They deserve your support. They play at 12 o'clock, Harrisburg Field. So there's my passion for you.
I do have to agree with what Councilman Patrick said about the design of things and making it more friendly to where you can get out and know one another. I know that in 1959, whenever the development I'm in, Harrisburg Park up here, was being done. None of this was thought of. 64 years ago, things were very different. And now here we are in 2023, and things need to be thought out more clearly. In 1986, when my son was an infant, colic, we drove around. We would stop up here at the baseball fields at Harrisburg Elementary School and watch the baseball games while he slept. We don't get a chance to do that anymore. It's not very convenient to get into Harrisburg Park, and you don't have the same proximity to the fields that you had with the fields here at the school. So we lost that. So I agree that I would like to see a whole lot more of that. If there's anything that I'm more passionate about, would be transparency. I've got one individual who has asked me several times, because he has asked repeatedly from the town manager to get a list of town employees' names and salaries. And he has gotten positions and salaries, no names. And he can't be sure. He thinks that everybody that all those positions that are being listed are in fact inhabited. That is a public document that is supposed to be seen. So transparency is something that I am very passionate about. And one of the things that the town needs to work on desperately is the website. For me, I have a very difficult time navigating that website. I can't find what I want to find on it. And often I click on a link and it's a dead link. So I have to agree with Ms. Glover and go with transparency as probably the number one issue.
I can say that as a small business owner, it has been one of my favorite privileges that I have is to be able to work with local residents every single day. I get a wide demographic of different people, different walks of life, different beliefs, different political beliefs, religious beliefs, you name it, it's there. And to me, I love to be able to be a voice for people and to be an informer. So communication is one thing that I'm very passionate about. Getting people involved, letting them know, like, you do have a voice. It does matter. Hey, did you know the town council meetings are public? They are open for the public. If you have something to say, if you have a concern, by all means, please go and participate in those. It is up to you to help shape your community. And so it's not necessarily that I'm advocating for any one particular thing, but for people to get involved and feel invested in the community that they live in. So I would say for me, my passion is connectivity and community.
You know what? I'm not going to do anything different than I'm doing now. I'm going to continue to ask those questions that the residents want to ask. So many times with councils before, you just see them up there shaking their head, saying yes. And they really, I do have council members that they probably really get tired of my voice, but that's okay. Because you, as a resident, need to know that I am asking the right questions, that I've done my due diligence, that I've read the documents. So I'm not going to do anything different. I'm going to continue to do that. But there's something I do want to do is I want us to work with the county, the state, Concord, Midland, about Lower Rocky River. This is the time before our town limits go all the way there that we decide how we're going to fix that road and widen it. You know, there was a plan years and years ago for Rocky River, but look how it's grown up. And now how are you going to widen it with all the growth that's on it? We need to take the opportunity now to get ready for that, and we need to start those conversations. We need to think about getting tax dollars for the parks from the county. But here, I need you as the residents to help me, because we're not in this game alone. So one thing I want to do is continually at the summit meetings try to talk to other council members in other municipalities and county commissioners to say, hey, it's not all on the town. It's on the county too, and the state and other municipalities.
It's almost impossible to pick just one thing that I'm passionate about, but I'm going to have to go with communication. I just believe that, as I said earlier, an informed council makes the best decisions. I think informed citizens can take those decisions or can take that information, maybe swallow it a little bit better. So for me, it's very important that we communicate what we're wanting to do so that everybody knows, or so that everybody at least get an opportunity to, get the information. So it's communication for me. Thanks.
So I would be remiss if I didn't say it was Parks and Rec. I'm on the Parks and Rec board, just started, and I feel very privileged to serve in that. Kathy and I are founding members of the YMCA because those are the things that contribute to the quality of life. And you don't fully appreciate it until you look back. And I look back and I think of my kids playing on that soccer field 30 years ago and what that meant to me and how big a deal it was to pack up the marshmallow squares and the orange slices and go out there, rain or shine, and be a part of it. You can't reproduce that feeling, and you can't get it back once those days are gone. So I want a next generation to have what we had in Harrisburg, that quality of life, and I think a lot of it comes through Parks and Rec. And again, I'm on the Parks and Rec board, so that's my passion. Thank you for that.
Okay, great. We're really entering the home stretch. Hope to get through 3 more questions before we call it a night. Ron will be the first to address this question, and we will go the opposite direction, followed by Ian. So this question is, regardless of which political party you're affiliated with, do you believe more in the values that be construed more on the conservative or liberal side in your personal, fiscal, and political life?
All right, so that's always been something that I've battled with because I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. And what I'll tell you is my family growing up was a Southern Democrat. And in my opinion, the Southern Democrat doesn't exist anymore. It had changed over the years. And as I got older with my kids and started making a little bit more money, I was like, wait a minute, where's my check going? Hold on. You know, when you're paying daycare payments and somebody else is also reaching in your pocket and taking a big lump. So now these conservative values start coming out. And where I aligned with, to be honest, was absolutely, I've been independent for many years. But there is a website out there that can identify your local views, your national views on political. And I found it quite interesting. I used it as a teasing point because Councilman Dellinger is a Republican, and I found that I was a little bit more conservative than he was. So I was taken back by it, but according to PolitiFact, I show up as conservative.
I've also been an independent for many years, and really that's for one reason, because we're an open primary state, and I want to be able to decide whether to vote in the Democratic primary or the Republican primary, and I think all of you should do it if you can, even if that means switching parties for a couple of months. I think that's really important. As to where I fall on the spectrum, I don't know. I'll let you guys make that judgment on your own. In some ways, I'm more conservative, and in other ways, I'm more liberal. I think the term liberal has been hijacked, unfortunately, and in some ways, the term conservative has been hijacked. I come down whether it depends on the issue or not. That's what I look for. I can have an opinion on something without having a label put on me. I will look at the information and decide then. And so, I quit joining groups a long time ago, and I don't plan on joining one anytime soon. So I don't have an answer for you, I'm sorry. I'll let the fair-mindedness of the audience make up their own decision.
Okay, I'm going to bury the hatchet from 2 years ago with the blue and white signs. I'm conservative, and I was so taken back by the fact that the blue and white signs threw people off that I about went and bought red and white signs this time, but I decided not to, so I digress. For me, it's conservative. It's more of a moral code and a moral compass. And like Councilman said, there's going to be issues that, test that. with where it falls in decision making. But it all goes back to a moral code and a conscience for me. So conservative.
Thank you. Can you read that question again?
Use the mic, help with the mic, right? Regardless of your political party or political affiliation, do you believe in the values and views of a conservative or liberal in your personal, fiscal, and political life?
Okay, thank you. So I'm certainly very fiscally responsible. Conservative in my spending. It has to make sense to spend the money. It has to make sense to make a decision on what happens in the community. So I don't know if that makes that answer liberal, or does that make me connected to what's happening in the community? And I think that at the end of the day, whatever it is what's best for the town of Harrisburg and what that looks like long term.
If you've been in my house, you could probably figure out what I am. I pay my bills on time. I'm not taking back any loans and not paying them back. I'm endorsed by the Republican Party. You can probably figure out where I land. I'm for inclusion. I'm for diversity. I'm for equality of life. I'm not going to raise your taxes. I'm not going to spend money that we don't have to spend. So you can draw your own conclusion about who I am and where I am. That's what I look through each decision, through that lens of your reasonable neighbor. Thank you for that.
I'm certainly fiscally conservative, but I think I'm morally liberal, if that is a thing. I just believe in inclusion as well. I believe that everyone deserves a shot. I don't think one party should hold hostage that. I believe in speaking truth to power. But I would agree with Patrick, with Councilman Patrick. It would really come down to the issue. I don't think one person is one thing. And it's just hard to just, if I'm a Democrat or if I'm a Republican, I'm not trying to be on the fence, but that just because I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote this way, or if I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote this way. I just think that you close off a lot of opportunities, and you close off people, or you begin to alienate people just because you identify with a specific party. So it would be for the issues for me. I would have to know what those issues are, and remembering that the people that put me in office is putting me there to represent the people, not myself. Thanks.
I believe to bear arms is our right. I believe for free speech is our right. I'm physically conservative. If I think it's too much on the grocery store, I'll leave it. Even if I want it, I'll leave it, right? The survey, yeah, those were hard questions. See, everybody needs to go ask them. I don't believe, look, I've had drinks before when I was in college, but I don't believe in alcohol, and I don't believe that it should be a lot of people do stuff that they normally wouldn't do when they consume alcohol. I don't believe in abortion. But yet we all are children of God. We all have sinned and come short of the glory. So I do not turn somebody away just because they may be different than me, or I may be different than them. We do have to learn to get along and realize that we do have different opinions. And just because we have different opinions, don't mean that you have to be hurtful and spiteful and enemy.
When we left Colorado for North Carolina, I was registered as an independent. Upon moving here, during COVID, there was a lot of things going on. And one of the big ones was what was going on within the educational system, because I had 2 daughters that were eager to get back to school to meet friends. And so in an effort to be able to understand what was going on, I went on the Facebook forum for Harrisburg and I said, hey, I'm a new resident. I'm interested in knowing what's going on. Who do you recommend I talk to? And many of you people know this name. It was unanimously Chelsea Carpenter. And so I contacted her. She invited me to go to a school board meeting. And then shortly thereafter, she invited me to go to one of the local Republican GOP meetings. From there, I went ahead and I registered as a Republican. I do have conservative values at heart by nature. But I can say that for me, it has always been a big deal for me to be able to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, hear the story, consider what it must have been like to live with the circumstances, the culture, the social issues that they came from. And so for me, even though I do have more of a conservative background, I do enjoy listening to the stories of others and having understanding and compassion to hear a different viewpoint. Because as much as I think I know how things are in my conservative views, there is a lot I don't know about life, and I'm always willing to learn from others, so.
I guess you'd have to say that I'm a conservative. I have been for most of my life, I suppose. I did broach the subject earlier of the social districts, but whenever I thought of the social districts, I never thought of alcohol. And I have to agree with Councilman Dellinger that I do not agree with alcohol being in our parks. And I don't mean when I spoke of social districts that I want people walking around with a toddy in their hand. I think that you can have a good time and interact with one another without a drink. That said, I'm also not opposed to someone having a drink. I just don't like it being foisted out in front of everyone else. And as far as the rest of it goes, I'll have to agree that it would have to depend upon the issue as to whether you're going to find me leaning conservative or liberal, but I'm pretty much going to have to say you'll probably find me more conservative than liberal. So I will try my best to represent you and work with council, because I alone cannot do anything. So we'll just have to work on a consensus, as I said earlier, and build from there.
Okay, great. I think we have enough time for 2 more questions. Okay, Chris, you were going to start this time, and Ms. Glover will go next. So this question's centered around housing. I know quite a few of you touched on this earlier, but I guess we'll get into it a little bit more here. How will you vote for high-density housing, such as more apartments in Harrisburg?
I've owned 3 houses in the Harrisburg area in the last 30 years. I'm not a big fan of high-density housing. I've seen what it can bring. And again, our allegiance is to the folks who are already here, the voters, the homeowners, the valuations that you already have. I want to protect and defend those valuations. I don't think we get that through an apartment complex. You can ride right over the line in Mecklenburg County if you want to go see what you get on Back Creek Church Road and beyond. It is not a happy place over there. It's interesting, one of the things the first responders here were talking about retaining that group, and what I've found is they want action. They want to fight fires. They want to do car rescues. We don't get a lot of that in Harrisburg. If you want that, you can go to Charlotte and get it about every half hour. So it's not our job to take care of everybody who's not here. Our job is to take care of the people who are footing the bill, the people who made the decision, the people who are here now. There's plenty of opportunities to get high-density housing in Concord. I see it built over there all the time. If you want to go to Charlotte and get that, that's your prerogative. Not a fan. So that's where we are, and our allegiance is to the folks who are already here. Thank you.
So Harrisburg not having high density housing has been by design. We understand that there are zoning requirements and things that would need to be changed to even allow that to happen here in Harrisburg. I think it would be the wisest thing to do, if to even consider something like that, would be to reach out to the residents. We're the ones that live here that would be impacted by that. And it goes back to the initial point that I made in my introduction about being connected to the community and being able to talk to you guys and hear what the feedback is on what that looks like. If Harrisburg were to make a decision that they were in favor of high-density housing, then as an elected official, it's my job to make sure that I relay that and then advocate for that on Harrisburg Town Council. If it is the reverse of that, and that is not the goal of the citizens here in Harrisburg, then also to do it in that order.
If elected, it'll be my goal to value the people and their wants first. And I think that the values and the way Harrisburg has been brought up and built is to not have apartments and high-density spaces. More so land, trees, white picket fence, so to say. And I think that is the Harrisburg feel. And that's how you continue to have that hometown feel, small town, with that in mind.
Yeah, I just say unequivocally, no, I don't think that we need high-density housing like apartments, but I want to tell you why, and go back to what I said about crime prevention through environmental design. If you live in a small apartment with a balcony that's 5 feet by 10 feet, are you going to meet your neighbor? Where's the tree that you're going to sit under with your kids and have a good time with your neighbor? How are you going to get to know them? Maybe when you pass by in the elevator or in the stairs, maybe even in the parking lot. That's not the culture we have in Harrisburg. The culture we have in Harrisburg is that we do things for each other and we look out for one another. Homes look outward. They look outward to the street. They look outward to their friends and their neighbors. Apartments look inward. That's just the nature of that design. Any good urbanist or architect will tell you that. Apartments are about the inner. Homes are about reaching out. And I think we should continue the project that we've done and holding developers to account to make sure that they give us those things that lessen that crime in the areas. Don't let anybody tell you that just because an apartment is $5,000 a month that it doesn't bring crime. I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. What brings crime is because people don't care about where they live. If you're renting, you have no investment in it. You can destroy it and lose your $200 deposit and go move on to the next one and destroy it too. People that own their homes care about them and in turn care about their neighbors.
So when we think about high density, there's been a lot of questions over the years. What exactly is high density? And some can say that's 3 houses per acre. Some will say that's 4 houses per acre. Some will tell you it's 5. Some it's apartments. If we're speaking specifically apartments, most of you are aware the property in Harrisburg is not cheap. There's got to be a significant investment for a developer to start. So the apartment developers tend to want to develop either near a busway or a trainway or some type of transportation. Harrisburg does not have that transportation coming through. If we ever expanded the bus situation, that would be at a tune of somewhere around $250,000 per year per bus to run one time. So it gets costly. We don't have the infrastructure, to be honest, in my opinion, to support that. When it has come up, I can tell you from sitting on the council from 15 to now, it was the folks that have reached out that said they were interested was much smaller than those that reached out and said they didn't want it. And I've always advised, if you want an apartment, there's some in Farmington, there's some right at the end of 49, right next to the cemetery, and there's some going to be right over across from the animal shelter on 49. That's probably the closest we'll have for apartments, at least if I have to decide on it.
Not a fan of high-density housing. this housing here in town center is too dense for me, so I'm not a fan. We do have a couple of 55 and older developments here in town now, and they are perhaps high density, I don't know. They are very close, I'll tell you that. And they work very well for their purpose. And I think that their covenants are holding them very well, and I don't think that they're going to be a problem like an apartment would be. So I don't think that you can necessarily call them high density, even if they are close. So that's one of the things that the UDO needs to be very cognizant of. And I think that they're doing a very good job of that so far. But as the others have said, if you want an apartment, they're right down the street. We don't really need them here in Harrisburg.
When I think of high-density housing, I am not thinking of it for Harrisburg. When I think of, hey, I would love to live in a cute townhouse with lots of traffic, I don't think of Harrisburg. So naturally, no, I don't see it fitting for Harrisburg. And then, like Ms. Glover was mentioning earlier, if the residents aren't in favor of it, well then we're not going to be ones to advocate for that. And up to this point, I have not met any local resident that is in favor of high density.
Well, if you know me, you know the answer to this question. Absolutely not. That's everywhere else. Like I said earlier, Pineville, Huntersville, Mooresville, Davidson, I want Harrisburg to be unique. And even if you get this high density, you're not gonna, let's say that the 336 density went in here in town center. You're not gonna get that developer to fix all your road problems you have here. So when you're still trying to deal with this intersection up here, it's gonna be worse. It's not gonna be better, all right? There's high density in neighborhoods with the neighborhood they put beside us that we fought years ago that ends up like 5 or 6 homes per acre. No, again, why did you come here? I know why I came here. It was close enough to Charlotte, but far enough away. I could get there when I needed to. You came here for the spaciousness, for the country feel, for the schools. When you bring in numbers, you're going to change your insurance ratings because you bring in numbers, you're going to have more accidents. I am not for high density. It is everywhere else. And actually, I'd love to see lots that are 0.40 or larger. And let me tell you, there was a study that came out during the pandemic where you had all these millennials working at home. They were working at home, and you know what it said? It said they wanted yards so they could go outside during the day. Now, if you have high density, can you go out in your yard? And let's not forget, too, when you have a developer wants to put all that stuff on 10 acres, leave the other 40 acres in green space, but you know what? And they call that, well, that's basically half-acre lots. No, it's not. And just remember, with high density and with water, and Mr. Torrance will know this, is that it's best to capture your water at the entry point. So when you have nothing but high density, you've got to ship that water, you've got to build BMPs, you've got to build SCMs, right? So no, I'm not a favor.
So we will be elected to serve the people, and the consensus seems to be they're not favoring a high-density living space. Personally, I don't want to sound like I'm being harsh for individuals that may live in an apartment, but I do appreciate the integrity that we have with maintaining single-family housing here in Harrisburg. But yeah, again, I don't want to sound like I'm looking down on someone that lives in an apartment. We all have to start somewhere. I started out, when I moved out from my parents, started out in an apartment. So I'm not for it, but I don't want to sound as if those are bad people either, because there are a lot of good people that has to start somewhere, and most of the time, that's where it's going to be.
Okay, great. So after a night of insightful questions. We're down to one more. Okay, Rodney, this is going to be a two-part question. This is the final question of the evening, folks. So if you want to take a little bit longer, feel free. Two-part question, as I mentioned. What is one strength that you will bring to the table if elected to town council? And why have you chosen to run for town council? And we will go from Rodney to Mr. Fant, that direction. Thank you.
So one strength, I guess, is to run my mouth, to ask the question, right? I'm just a common person, all right? I was a programmer. I was in TV before then. I pay my taxes just like you, and I know what I see when I used to sit out in the audience before I got on council. So my strength is hopefully to be able to answer the questions that you have in your mind. So why am I running again? That's a good question, right? It takes a lot of time. It's something I don't take lightly. You get agendas, you meet with developers, you go to advisory board meetings, you go to grand openings. It takes time. It does, and I don't, again, take it lightly. So I read those agendas, and one thing that we were able to do with this council 3 years ago was get those agendas out early. We used to get them on Thursday night. Now we get them on Monday because you need time. You need time as residents too because your week's different and you need to be able to go through it. I can't read every fine print, but I read a lot. So, I mean, that's a strength there again. But I'm running because sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. And I had to do it this time. We have made progress in Harrisburg. We need to keep that progress growing. So again, November the 7th, I hope you'll consider me for re-election on town council. Thank you.
The strength that I bring comes from the Marine Corps. Yeah, it's leadership. And in the Marine Corps, you start out in leadership very early, whether you go to the officer side or the enlisted side. And that's something that we hold dear in the Marine Corps. The service that we provide, I've been serving all of my adult life, which is why I'm running. I believe people should have a voice, which is why I'm running. And I think it's important to communicate and build and establish relationships. Everything that I've ever done, that I've been successful at, it was about building relationships. Now, I've met all of these gentlemen and ladies, and I couldn't tell if they were on the right or if they were on the left, which was good for me because I got to meet a person and not an R or a D. So I'm going to ask for your vote for November the 7th. I really don't think you can go wrong with any of the candidates. I believe in my heart of hearts that maybe we'll all get together after this is over. I know Ms. Anderson, Mr. Fall, and Ms. Glover were sharing recipes last time we were together, and I'm looking forward to enjoying some of those. But I will ask for your vote because I am here. I've been in service for all of my adult life. I think it's special to be able to do that. It is tough, but leadership is tough. You have to make some tough decisions. But I think you can make those tough decisions with compassion. And so again, I will ask for your vote on November the 7th. And I just want to thank Harrisburg Business Network for having us here and the Venture for hosting this as well. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you. I'll be around. I love to meet and shake everybody's hand afterwards. And again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for all that you do, and just thank you for being an informed voter as well. Thanks.
So I think the strength that I bring is I'm a lifelong learner. I've existed at the corporate level for 30 years. I'm retiring at the end of the year. I'm done. It's time to give back. So I'd like to spend another 30 years giving back to this community that's given to me. In my corporate role, I manage tens of millions of dollars in expense. We have multiple billions of dollars in revenue that we're responsible for. So I think I can help here. I think I can apply a business acumen to the running of government. As to why I'm running, it is time to give back, and it is time to plow back in. We've been given so much from this community, it's almost like an IOU. This would be like running out on a check in a restaurant if we didn't give back. Regardless of what happens in the election, I am going to serve on the Parks and Rec Board. I am going to be involved. I was in the Multicultural Festival Day and was proud to represent the USA and proud to see 50 different walks of life represented out there. We're in great hands. The good news is I think you have great choices up here, and I agree with Mr. Fant. I stood up his sign the other day. I was putting my sign up if you haven't seen him, and one of his was down, so I went ahead and stood it back up. So that's who we are in Harrisburg. I hope you'll consider me for November 7th, and I'll serve you well. Thank you.
So what I consider my best strength is my ability to communicate. As I said before, in the nature of work that I'm in, and for those of you who are unclear on what that is, I'm a social worker. I've worked in child welfare, I've worked in the schools, I've worked in private practice. I've had to have some really difficult conversations with people, even having to tell parents that I'm going to have to recommend that the court remove their children from them or make a recommendation that they be placed for adoption. But I've been able to continue to foster those relationships with those parents. That takes a unique skill of being able to have hard conversations, understanding that there is a positive outcome on the other side of it. I think that skill set will fill me well here on the Harrisburg Town Council, because I know that there will be tough decisions that will need to be made. And in that, being able to use that skill set to make sure that we're advocating for the residents of Harrisburg and that we're looking long-term, which leads me right into why I decided that I wanted to run to be a part of the Harrisburg Town Council. And that is because I am absolutely invested in Harrisburg. This is a place where my husband and I intentionally moved with the intention of growing old here. We want our children to be able to return here and raise their families here. But to be able to do that, again, our decisions today have to be with a forward thought of what that looks like in 10 years, 15 or 20 years down the road. So when we're making these decisions, that we have longevity in mind. I would appreciate your vote on November 7th. I'll be back at the back of the room to answer questions for you. If we're not able to connect tonight, please reach out to me on my website, latriciaglover.com. Thank you.
My biggest strength is servant leadership and being a people person. And this is putting you first, going over and beyond the call of duty to hear and listen to your concerns, your needs, and your wants. When I was a high school teacher at Hickory Ridge for those years, they might have hired a guy who wasn't ready to teach as he maybe should, but I knew that with the content and the trust built with those students, that I could teach anything and we could have any conversations. And I've coached many of your kids here, and I think they can vouch for the fact that they always felt heard, and there was always an atmosphere of objective talk, and everybody felt valued at the end of the day. So that's where learning happens, is being heard, servant leadership. Why am I running? I want to help enhance what is already being done well in Harrisburg for the future generations, my kids, my grandkids. We'd love to have you vote November 7th.
Thanks. I'll take your question in reverse order, if I may. Why am I running again? A glutton for punishment, I suppose. I say that my children have turned my beard white, and town council has made me bald, or at least balding. Honestly, I ran the first time because the folks there at the time were screwing it up. And we've made some good progress, and I feel like Sisyphus. I've about got the boulder to the top of the hill, and if I can just push it over, then maybe I can retire like Mr. Fall. So that's why I'm running again. What's my biggest strength? I think long-term planning. You know, I'm in the architecture industry. Our projects last for years and years and years. I had a project just go into construction. It won't be finished until well late 2025. You have to be able to think long-term to do this job. If you remember in 2008, there was a big stimulus package that was done to try to get people back to work. And what the administration, the federal administration at the time, wanted was what we call shovel-ready projects in the business. They're designed, they're sitting on a table, they're ready to go, ready to be funded. During my first term, I saw that happening again. I said, look, this administration is going to want to do the same thing. They're going to want to be able to put their name on it and fund shovel-ready projects. I made sure that we funded the design of those things, and yes, we had to pay for the design, but we got, just last year alone, $17 million in grants. That's not your taxpayer dollars. That's nearly a third of our budget in the town in grants that are going to pay for road and traffic improvements. I'm actually surprised. Thinking, we have now exhausted our shovel-ready projects, and I'm going to have to go to Public Works and Planning and say, get some projects started again because we want some more of those grants. All right? I had the foresight to say, we need to get these projects ready because I see it coming down the road later. So, yes, not only my architectural background, urban planning background, how cities and towns work, how traffic work, how those projects actually get done, but couple that with long-term planning. I think that's my biggest strength, and I think it's a good asset for Harrisburg in general.
So, Councilman Patrick, I'll share with you from last night. I sit on the road committee for Cabarrus and Rowan County, and when it comes out to these grants that Councilman Patrick mentions, we were, for the most part, approved last night for yet another over here on Main Street. So that more information will be coming about that, but it was to the tune of something around 3.4 million. So good stuff. My handout is very simple. And it starts, personally, what I feel is my biggest strength, bridging the gap between residents and local government. I am constantly reminded by folks who call me, email me, and say, thank you. Because of your explanation, I understand. You have broken it down better than I could have asked you to explain it. I get phone calls, I get emails. Why don't you snip back at these folks? Why don't you give them a smart response? And I said, you know, I've got the patience. I gain nothing by belittling anyone or saying, why didn't you know this? I would rather, as I said earlier, you have the same information that I have. Therefore, we're on an equal playing field. So when you do question me about my decisions and why I voted for this project or why I didn't vote for this project, you understand the factors that we were looking at. It doesn't help you as the resident to not have the information. So I would tell you, patience and listening and communicating back to the residents. Why am I running? That was a hard question. And honestly, 2 years ago, I was checked out. I was ready to move it along. And we installed our last council crew, Altine Cautel, Maurice Price, and Mike Thevenin. And I can tell you, the last 2 years has been a dream. You would be surprised. We got a new mayor. Mayor came in, she cleaned house, she got us all by her rules. We have a new house. We've got a clean house. We don't have games. We're adults. And it has been a dream. So I would ask not only to reelect myself, but reelect Rodney Dellinger, reelect Ian Patrick. Let us continue on the work that we've done to get through this. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
What would my strength be? I think probably I learned early whenever I got on the volunteer fire department board was that I was going to have to be very thorough. Just because the staff came and said they wanted some pretty shiny piece of equipment didn't mean that we would get it for them. They had to justify that, and they had to do a deep dive to justify that, and that has continued. So I think that my strength might very well be being thorough in whatever's brought forward to council to see to it that we make the correct decision. Things have, again, changed so drastically that I think, why am I running now? The current council, I think, has done a number of things very well, but there are some things that they've done very poorly, and I would like to try and improve upon those things. So I think maybe that's the best way for me to say what my strength is and why I'm running.
All right, awesome. Well, I get to land this airplane, and can I just say this? We do have an amazing group of candidates who love and care about this community. And so it has been such a pleasure to get to watch them on their campaign journeys. I do also agree that I think we are in really good hands with what the current council has done and to see what they're going to continue with. So my strength, I would say strength is communication. I enjoy listening. I enjoy exchanging thoughts and ideas. Communication is going to be my strength. Why I am running. For those of you who don't know, I also helped pastor the church in Kannapolis. Community, making sure that we have the heartbeat of people always in mind. From their national directorship, not only did I help the local level, but I also helped on a national level there again with developing leaders. And so why the transformation from church to community town? I would have to say this, it's because community matters to me. I have children that are still in the home. I want to be able to be as available and present for them as I can. And so to make this transition seemed like a no-brainer for me to be able to serve my community, continue to raise my family, and to be a servant leader the way I would encourage the rest of you to be as well. So I look forward to getting to know some of you guys, and like the rest have said, November 7th, early voting is going on now, so feel free if you want to take that trip up to Concord and cast your vote because you know who you would like to see on the next council. I would encourage you to do so. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, great. So this pretty much concludes tonight's town council candidate forum for 2023. Again, really would like to thank all you candidates. Great, insightful answers. I wish you all great success, a lot of luck in the upcoming election. Thank those of you in attendance, those of you streaming on YouTube. Hope you all learned a little bit about the candidates and maybe help you out a little bit in regards to whatever decision you need to make on who you're going to vote for. And again, a special personal thank you to those in HBN who have helped really put this event forth. Arlo Rice of Rice Flooring, Chelsea Carpenter, Brent Witchell of Wobble Wallet, David Henderson of Gathering on Main, and Beth Walker of Kevin Brewer and Associates. Hope you guys all travel safe, and again, please get out there and vote on November 7th. Thank you.